One of the things that research has confirmed is that what's good for your heart is good for your brain. And if you think about all of the kinds of benefits you get from getting regular physical activity throughout your day and how that helps brain function, it also promotes cardiovascular health, improves that blood flow and your circulation to the brain, reduces inflammation. It really does help you think better. It helps you think and learn and problem solve. It helps to improve memory, reduce anxiety and depression. It improves our sleep. There are so many things that physical activity does for us. And so I can't stress that enough, that people need to move and move regularly throughout their day.
According to a recently published K-State Research and Extension Family and Consumer Sciences fact sheet, what you eat, how much you move, how well you sleep, and how you manage stress plays an important role in your overall well-being, including physical and mental health. Research also shows a connection between heart and brain health. By keeping your heart healthy, you also lower your risk for stroke, dementia, and other brain problems. On today's Sound Living, some ways to protect the health of your body and brain. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wickman. Age-related cognitive decline is common. Alzheimer's disease is one of the top 10 leading causes of death in the U.S. and the 5th leading cause of death among those 65 or older. K-State Research and Extension Family and Consumer Sciences Specialist for Northeast Kansas, Sharolyn Jackson, and Family and Consumer Sciences Agent for Wyandotte County, Lori Wuellner, are the authors of Healthy Body, Healthy Brain. They say that while the death rates for heart disease and cancer are declining, the death rate for Alzheimer's disease is increasing, both nationally and in Kansas. Sharolyn, first off, maybe just some background on this, because you really kind of introduced this concept during Walk Kansas.
We sure did, Jeff. We focused this year on the connection between a healthy body, healthy mind, and that many of the things that we think about that are also healthy for our heart improve our cognitive function and help delay Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia.
And a lot of this, Lori, is coming out of new research. As they continue to do research, they're making more and more connections between really diet, exercise, and how our brain functions.
Yes, I think, we've talked about it for a number of years, but now the research is really making those connections. And so we're able to take some of that research and move forward with recommendations.
And this is something that we're seeing really extensively in Kansas.
Yes, we are. And we know that it's actually across the entire United States. But in Kansas, we know that about 11.4% of people that are age 45 and older have some type of what we call subjective cognitive decline. And that puts a huge burden on family caregivers as well. Other health issues that come into play, 80% of those with this subjective cognitive decline have at least one other chronic condition. So that's another thing that we're seeing, is that it's usually not just one chronic condition that somebody has. And dementia can pair with some of those other chronic diseases that are fairly common. And so it's really important to look at the total body, not just physical health, but mental health at the same time.
And that's really what this fact sheet does, doesn't it? There's a lot of information here, starting off with just kind of the brain-gut connection.
Yes, and again, it's research that is proving that the connection is not just hearsay, but it is actually true, how we have an almost second brain, and it's called the inner nervous system, or the ENS, and how actually that brain in our gut actually communicates to the brain in our head. And so, therefore, the solid connection as to why we need to take proactive steps to make sure that we keep both systems healthy.
Really, to support that digestive health, though, and improve gut bacteria, there's 9 things that you can focus on.
Yes, and, it's always nice to have a list of things to do, but in looking at the list, which are eating a diverse range of food and eating lots of veggies and fruits, legumes, and beans, making sure you're incorporating fermented foods, avoiding artificial sweeteners, and getting your plate filled with some of those prebiotic foods. Breastfeeding also, at least 6 months, is another recommendation. Whole grains is on that list. Plant-based foods, more of that on your plate. And then the last one is just eating foods that are rich in polyphenols. And that may seem like a very kind of daunting or big list, but we always encourage people, again, look at the big picture, but then there are some that you can pull out and start applying now. What are some small changes that you can make now that you will find success with?
Is that kind of what you did, Sharolyn, through the Walk Kansas program then, was focus on some of these changes that people could make really slowly over time, kind of small steps? I think we kind of went more with the mind approach.
Right. And it's always better to, instead of just making a huge drastic change at one time, to look at what are some of those recommendations and think, okay, what's something I can have success with here very quickly? And if you have success, you're more confident, more motivated to try another small change, to kind of layer those on each other. And that sets you up for actually making a lifestyle change, a habit change. So that's what we really focus on in Walk Kansas, with really zeroing in on physical activity and also healthy eating through that program.
And the mind is kind of a combination then of the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet.
That's right. The mind diet is a hybrid of those two diets, like you just mentioned. And there are 15 dietary components again, and there's what we call 10 brain healthy food groups. And I think pulling out a couple of the key things in the mind diet is that the recommendation is to have green, leafy vegetables, dark greens, every day, or at least 6 servings per week. So that's something that a lot of people can do. They can make that a goal to have those green, leafy vegetables every day. Of course, other vegetables as well, nuts, berries. Berries are really linked to having a positive effect on brain health. Some of the things Lori mentioned, beans, whole grains, eating more fish, poultry, olive oils, and then limiting some foods like the red meats to no more than 3 servings per week is the recommendation in the mind diet. Limiting butter, stick margarine, limiting cheese, and of course sweets and sweetened beverages, and those fried foods and fast foods. So it's not a huge difference from what we've recommended before, but there's a little bit more specifics to it with those green leafy vegetables and some berries and other things that you want to have very frequently.
Another part of the fact sheet talks about exercising your brain, and that's something that I think maybe I don't do nearly enough. But what do we mean when we're talking about exercising the brain?
Well, there's exercise for your brain, and then there's exercising the brain. So those are really two different things. So I'll speak a little bit about the physical activity component and how it helps brain health. And one of the things that research has really confirmed is that what's good for your heart is good for your brain. We all know that physical activity is good for our heart, but it's also good for your brain. And if you think about all of the kinds of benefits you get from getting regular physical activity throughout your day and how that helps brain function, it also promotes cardiovascular health, improves that blood flow and your circulation to the brain, reduces inflammation. It really does help you think better. It helps you think and learn and problem solve and enjoy an emotional balance. It helps you sometimes work out problems and things that are stressful, and just a good walk can help you gain a different perspective. It helps to improve memory, reduce anxiety and depression. It improves our sleep. There are so many things that physical activity does for us. And so I can't stress that enough, that people need to move and move regularly throughout their day.
I know we're trying to get that 150 minutes per week of kind of moderate to vigorous physical activity.
Right. Moderate to vigorous is right. But I guess this is a little phrase that I learned from one of our specialists in Missouri that, he always says some physical activity is better than none, more is better than some, and too much is hard to get. So use that approach. That's the minimum recommendation, that 150 minutes. So the more you can move, that's at the moderate to vigorous intensity level, but the more you can move throughout your day, the better off you'll be.
Managing your stress also important because that can impact brain function as well?
Yes, it can. Stress is just not a good thing for mental, physical health. But I think one of the things that you have to remember is that there's no way we're going to avoid it. And if we avoided stress, life might be pretty boring. So the main thing you need to do is learn to manage your stress. So focus on what you can control in your situation, first of all. Stick to a routine as much as possible. And then, even though stress is often unpredictable, but if you have some kind of a routine in place, that can be helpful. Taking care of yourself, which is what we've talked about here the entire time so far, just practicing good, healthy habits, and then connecting with others and avoiding isolation. That's really huge. One of the things that I think we've all realized, particularly after the challenges of COVID, that it's really important to have those connections and then to get organized, and then you can better manage your situation. So dividing into small groups of tasks, and then tackling one thing at a time versus looking at the big picture and being daunted by it.
Lori, also sleep, very important, and it's something that I all of the statistics I see show that virtually no one gets as much sleep as they're supposed to.
Yeah, that's exactly true. I saw a percentage that really speaks to that majority of adults don't get the 8 hours that is really recommended. And again, sleep, we used to think it was considered a luxury, that it just was something that our bodies and brain, just settled in and kind of shut down. But we know it's so important for many reasons. And the fact sheet does identify a few points on that as to, some tips on getting good sleep. But obviously it's good for our physical health and our emotional health and just consolidation of memory. But certainly what we've included in the fact sheet is not exhaustive, but really hits some of the primary tips that would help you improve your sleep. And part of that is just establishing a routine. Our bodies and our brains like a routine, and that means, getting to bed around the same time each night and trying to prepare your body ahead of time, just get it relaxed prior to. And you want to take a look around your sleep environment. What's the temperature? Is it nice and cool, around 65 degrees? How's the lighting? And of course, alcohol and caffeine can inhibit a good quality sleep as well. And the recommendation is also just to avoid any spicy or heavy foods that are high in fat prior to bedtime. Actually, the recommendation is about 3 hours. And of course, we know that physical activity can improve good quality sleep. It just kind of helps us utilize that energy, and again, that produces kind of that melatonin, which is healthy and needed for a good sleep. And then, of course, just anything else that your body is telling you. We know our own bodies, so what is it telling you? You need more sleep, and so it's a good idea to listen to your body.
The other thing is to just challenge your brain. Are we talking about puzzles here, or is there something else?
Oh, sure. Puzzles, all kinds of things. I think one of the main things is to mix it up. Even something as simple as taking a different route home from work once in a while, to mix it up that way. Just something that is different, and have a variety of cognitive exercises that keep you thinking clearly, for a longer period of time. Taking up a new sport. I was just mentioning earlier that I tried tennis a couple of times and learned that that's like the number 2 best activity for your cognitive function. So just learning something new. Do things often. Make sure that you're engaging your brain as frequently as you can. And it can be something just really simple. Reading and puzzles can be done daily. And then, visiting museums, playing an instrument, that also engages your brain. And then to challenge yourself and to think of different ways. Maybe it's just learning a new song. Maybe it's learning a different language or a different game. If you play games with your grandchildren, pick out a different game. Just something that simple, just to mix it up, is really the main key.
Anything that really engages the brain. And as you mentioned earlier, avoiding that isolation, because the socialization is also a way to interact and engage and keep your mind active.
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly something that everybody is interested in, and sometimes it's nice to just have something all in one place where you can get all of that information at once.
Exactly, and I think the fact sheet also rolls in a glossary of terms. We've thrown out some things that maybe you're not quite sure what that is, and so the glossary defines that for our readers and our listeners. And the fact sheet's just right hot off the press, and so after August, I think you'll be seeing our agents using this information and sharing more programming around it.
That's K-State Research and Extension Family and Consumer Sciences Specialist for Northeast Kansas, Sharolyn Jackson, and Family and Consumer Sciences Agent for Wyandotte County, Lori Wuellner. They're the authors of Healthy Body, Healthy Brain. The 8-page fact sheet is available from the K-State Research and Extension bookstore at www.bookstore.ksre.ksu.edu or by contacting any county or district extension office. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wickman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.